Please note that today's episode of The Power of Three occasionally contains some strong language, which may not be suitable for younger listeners. And that jarring cacophony tells you you're back with the Power of Three podcast. And we are taking a look today at one of the most famous, shall we say, Doctor Who novels. Some might even say infamous. Today we're talking about Transit, which was the 10th novel in the Virgin New Adventures series, published on the 3rd of December 1992, with a cover by Peter Elson. It was of course written by Ben Aaronovitch, who had crafted Remembrance of the Daleks and Battlefield for the 7th Doctor and Ace on television. And this novel features the 7th Doctor once again, and his new companion Bernice Summerfield. This was actually the first novel to feature Benny as a companion following her introduction in the previous novel, Love and War. However, this book is, I suppose infamous might be a better word for it, for its multiple use of expletives, as the F word is used 14 times throughout the book, and there are other moments, and particularly there's also another more adult reference which perhaps we could say left a bad taste in the mouth for some readers. Ben of course has since gone on to have an incredible writing career with his Rivers of London series, and he'll be telling us about his latest novel, Stone and Sky as well, which of course is partly set in Scotland, which makes it doubly interesting to this podcast. So it's a fantastic read, but we'll be coming to that later on. But before we get to Ben's latest book, let's turn back to his first original novel and have a look at the cover. We have a woman on it, who we later discover is Cadiatu Lethbridge Stewart, and she appears to be in some form of London Underground, or a futuristic underground with a robot watching her. Let's turn the book over and see what the back cover has to say. Oh no, not again. It's the ultimate in mass transit systems, a network of interstitial tunnels that bind the planets of the solar system together. Earth to Pluto in 40 minutes with a SuperSave non-premium off-peak travel card. But something is living in the network, chewing its way to the very heart of the system and leaving a trail of death and mutation behind it. Once again, a reluctant doctor is dragged into human history. Back down amongst the joy boys, free surfers, chess fans, politicians and floozies, where friends are more dangerous than enemies, and one man's human being is another's psychotic killing machine. Once again, the doctor is all that stands between humanity and its own mistakes. Not a bad setup. Fascinating read, this one. I remember when this came out, I was 18 years old and was at uni, and when I read this book, completely opened my eyes. Like Andrew Cartmell's Warhead, it's a very dark world. It's an adult world, and it's not the cosy, comfy world of, for example, Time and the Rani, or even, dare I say, Paradise Towers. This is a million miles away from that. This is an adult sci-fi novel, and I think that's why so many fans at the time did not get it. They struggled. It's got an awful lot of mature content in it. Not what you would expect in Doctor Who then. Perhaps some you wouldn't get now, but there's a hell of a lot that has survived, particularly proper emotional relationships and the fact that people do enjoy having skin-on-skin contact. For example, look at Mickey Smith offering Rose a night together in a hotel in Boomtown, for example. So yes, it is an adult novel. I think that's the best way to sum it up. And to kick us off, we're now going to hear the prelude from Transit, and this appeared in Doctor Who magazine issue 195. This was in the days when DWM would trail the novel by having a little short story of its own, a proper little teaser to get you into the book. So these were very popular and ran for quite a while. And this is Ben Aaronovitch's writing for Transit. This has been brought to life for us by Craig Brawley, and let's hear that now.
and when he was old, they put him out to pasture. They gave him a dacha that overlooked the lake and assigned him a flat-faced nurse who'd once worked for the KGB. During the short alpine summer, when the pollution reports were favourable, she would wheel him out onto the veranda to sit in the sun. They kept a bracelet on his wrist, a battery of miniature sensors that monitored his heart, blood sugar and adrenaline levels. The stainless steel buckle deliberately too complex for his arthritic fingers to unfasten. Every other second, it broadcast a burst of medical data, relayed through the TV in the lounge and onto the mainframe under the school. A constant mechanical death watch. His final decline, bitmapped in glorious 3D under the ground. His nights were filled with nightmares, as if the sum of all his fears had finally broken through the decaying walls of his conscious mind. He would wake screaming, his body rigid with terror, clawing at the smothering blankets. Even so, as his memories faded, he found himself embracing his night terror as the only surety of his existence. There was a horse in the field below the dacha, a magnificent white stallion, 18 hands high, with hooves as big as dinner plates, which had gone bad-tempered with old age. Once in a while, a tall man with blonde hair would enter the field and talk to the horse. He was aware that he too had visitors, men and women, mostly in uniform. They too would speak to him, but, like the horse, he was aware only of the tone, not the substance of their words. He felt himself in competition with the stallion, a contest to see who could die first. It was difficult to say when he first became aware of the boy. He seemed to have sprung up like a mushroom on the veranda one day while he was dozing. The boy never seemed to wear his boots, although the rest of his uniform was always crisp, the blue UN flashes startling against the deep camouflage green. The old man would open his eyes to find the boy squatting comfortably beside the wheelchair. He got the sense that the boy was somehow watching over him. New dreams overcame him in his sleep. A forest in some far country where the air was hot and moist under the spreading canopy. Someone would speak to him in his dream. Sometimes it was a woman, sometimes it was the boy, sometimes a mixture of both. The dreams filled him with a sense of loss, like a fading summer. After a while, a week, a month, a year, he didn't know, he spoke to the boy. "Who are you?" he asked. The boy looked at him with strangely familiar eyes. "Girl's eyes," thought the old man. "Don't you know me, Baba?" he asked. The old man shook his head. He'd forgotten so much. "I'm dying," he said suddenly. "Yes, Baba," said the boy. "I know." "Everybody dies," said the old man. "Me, the horse, even you." "Yes, Baba." "Do you know why we die?" "No, Baba," said the boy. "Because we live." The boy was silent. Out on the pasture, the stallion restlessly pawed the ground. "You like the horse?" asked the boy finally. "It's a stallion," said the old man, as if it was important. "You want to ride it?" "I can't," said the old man, restless in his wheelchair. "I think you want to," said the boy. Mounting was easier than he thought it would be. The boy was stronger than he looked, boosting him onto the horse's back. He felt the hot skin of the horse against his legs as he got astride, the muscles shifting under the skin. "I say," he told the boy, "I think I've forgotten how to do this." "Nothing is forgotten," said the boy. "Don't tell me," he snapped. "Tell the horse." The boy smiled and raised his hand. In that moment, the old man saw himself reflected in the boy's expression. Suddenly, he remembered it all. He remembered the path in the forest, the girl with the basket on her head, being young and full of impetuous blood. "Wait," said the old man. There were questions he wanted to ask, things he wanted to say. The flat of the boy's hand came down hard on the stallion's rump. The old man forgot the boy as the horse sprang away. He was amazed at the power still in the old animal, amazed at the strength in his own limbs as he gripped with his knees and held onto the mane with both hands. The horse raced across the pasture, its hooves thundering on the grass like the sound of distant guns. The perimeter of the field was marked with a barbed wire fence, but the stallion took it easily, snorting with contempt. They hit the macadam surface of the access road that ran down to the main road. He felt the wind rip around his face, stripping away the haze that had consumed his mind. He changed his posture, riding with his back down, head thrust forward into the wind. The stallion responded by picking up the gallop. He saw the school to his left, framed by the blue-white peaks of the mountain beyond. People were outside, men and women with startled faces, running to intercept him. He wanted to shout to them, to tell them that it was all right, that he'd discovered the secret of eternal youth, but his lungs were full of cold air and pain. The horse, too, was breathing in ragged, uneven gasps, spittle flying back from drawn lips. Across the landing field they raced, where the helicopters clattered and buzzed. Across the perimeter road and onto the final pasture before the lake. He risked a look behind. A land cruiser was chasing them, bouncing across the rutted field. The driver taking insane risks to reach them in time. Too late. Ahead, the edge of the cliff bisected his view, the far shore of the lake just visible above and beyond that, the cool peaks of the mountains. A line of wire mesh across the lip to stop the unwary falling. One last fence. The hated bracelet on his wrist started to scream, a last technical defense against oblivion. The stallion took the fence with a meter to spare. The ground vanished from beneath them. He felt the artery burst like a blow inside his skull. Horse and rider were both dead before they hit the water 200 meters below. And when he was dead, they put him in the ground. They gave him a funeral with full military honours and buried him under the Union Jack. After the young soldiers had been paraded away, the old soldiers went inside to tell their lies and to try to drink enough to sleep that night. It was almost dawn by the time General Bambera climbed into bed and her husband's arms. He'd taken it very well, considering it had been his horse. "Nothing is forgotten," she said before she fell asleep. They woke her an hour later to tell her that a mountain in America had just exploded.
Thank you so much for that, Craig. You'll be back later on with a second reading from the book. And be warned, it does feature an F-bomb in it. And I'm not just talking about the word free. We often use that at work when we want to see if somebody's free for a conversation. So yes, this is the other F word. And now we're going to have a conversation with Ben. We're going to chat a bit about transit, but also Stone and Sky, his new #1 bestseller. I actually got to meet Ben a few weeks ago when he was in Glasgow. He was up doing the signing tour for the book, and I managed to say hello to him in Glasgow and had a quick word with him, and he very kindly agreed to come on the podcast then. It's all been fixed up through his lovely PA. So let's meet the writer of Transit.
My name is Ben Aaronovitch. I lie for a living, which is great because I've got no other talents. Yeah, that's basically it. My name's Ben Aaronovitch. I lie for a living. I wake up every morning going, suckers! Because basically I do this anyway, but people pay me for it. I mean, how cool is that as a profession? I write books, basically. I write fiction books because non-fiction is too much effort. I've got a lot of respect for people who write non-fiction books. Don't know why they think that's a good idea, but hey, somebody's got to do it. I'm mostly well known. Actually, I'm weirdly bifurcated because I'm well known for amongst a very narrow group of people for Doctor Who, and I'm much better known, but still quite a narrow group of people for my Rivers of London books. And there's a big gap in between those two career paths, which is just depressing, and I don't like to talk about it.
Well, we won't go into that area, but given that we're going to be chatting about your new novel shortly, I thought it'd be interesting to turn back the clock to the time when you wrote Transit, because obviously you've talked a lot about Remembrance and Battlefields elsewhere.
The most hated new adventure. It like comes at the bottom of every list. I think The Pit. Maybe occasionally I'm pipped by The Pit.
You and Neil Penswick. But hey, the also people made it into the top 10 of new adventures of all time in Doctor Who magazine as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Doctor Who magazine did not like it. I got a horrible review from them. They hated it.
Yeah.
I make no apologise for it, but I can see why they hated it. I don't really blame them for that much, really. But they said go write adult Doctor Who. So I went and wrote adult Doctor Who, and I was into cyberpunk. That's basically the story of Transit. And also, it was the second book I'd ever written, and it was the first full-length novel I'd ever written. So, it's not bad for a second novel, I don't think. It's got its moments. Structurally, it's a bit weird, but I got better. That's all I'm going to say. But I think it's good. I mean, the thing is that you're always looking back at if you're not looking back at your work and thinking, I've got better since I wrote that, there's something wrong with you. You're not paying enough attention to your craft. You should always be striving to be a better writer after, rather than, that was really good. I feel sorry for people who have like their first big hit, and then they're stuck with that. And everyone goes, it's not as good as his first book. And that must be so dispiriting. But fortunately, I always have Transit to fall back on.
Do you remember, was it one did you pitch to Virgin, or did Peter Darvill Evans come to you?
I actually can't remember. It's just, I think I think they said write something, and I went, I got this vague TV idea that I had. Let's see where that goes. But my style of writing is not to actually know what's going on until quite near the end of the book. So it's very hard for me to pitch things. I'm not. One of the reasons why I think I'm fairly unsuccessful as television writer is the fact that I actually don't know what's going to happen at the end of the story. So it's like, stuff happens, and then I have kind of flashes, and it sort of solidifies as I'm writing it. So it's not like I'm not one of these people that kind of starts on page 1 and then just gets to the end page and go, that was what the book was about. I usually start figuring it out as I go, but it's I don't know what I said. Darvill, he was a strange man anyway.
By this point, Ace is gone, who obviously you knew from the TV show. Sylvester's still there as the Doctor. And we've got a new companion in Bernice, who was this was her second adventure. So I think that you had her being hypnotised and mind-controlled, which sort of eased up those problems to find a character early on.
Oh, yeah. The thing is, I tried to put as much as I could glean from all the material that I'd got. But, I wasn't, the pitch was not for that character. So the pitch was not for that character. And so therefore you have to kind of include that character. See, so if it stayed Ace, right, then I would have gone in a different direction. But I went in the direction. I really wasn't thinking. I don't think like that. I'm not that kind of structural. I don't think, I must do this because of this. I just get on with it and hope it turns out all right. I hate this phrase. I write by the seat of my pants. I don't really write by the seat of my pants. It's much more like, I've described, the best way I've always described it is I start writing and my characters start complaining, and then it's like, get in line, you fucking. I wasn't expecting the Doctor to get drunk or any of that kind of stuff, or Kadiatu to be the personification of the Gallifreyan life process or whatever it was I thought I was doing halfway through that. But and all that kind of stuff just kind of like, wow, that's really good. And I was writing it very fast. I'm a very slow writer, so by my standards, I was writing it very fast. By Darvill's standards, it was fucking late. So it's like and it's a first draft, and there was no revision of it. There was no time to do any revision. This is a pattern that goes through my life, really. I hand things in late so they don't have to edit them. I hate editing. There's people out there, they love to edit. They say, I've edited my book 4 times. Can't do it. I'm sick of it by the time I finished it. I don't even want to look at it again. I can't be objective about it. I'm like, hate it. If I was going to really re-edit something, I'd have to put it down for 6 months, and then I'd go, well, it's perfectly fine as it is, and then I'd go on. Fortunately, I have editors who go things like, that character's name has changed halfway through the book. Oh, okay. That's important. important safety tip.
Now, I was wondering, have you had bad experiences on the tube?
No.
Well, that's good, because I did wonder if that's where the whole stellar tunnel stuff came from.
No, I mean, we got to remember the tube was like it's nadir when I was in my 20s. It was at its absolute nadir. It was being London was being deliberately underfunded by the Tory government, who hated London. Margaret Thatcher personally hated London. I mean, you think she hates Scots? She actually had Scots in her cabinet, but she hated London really badly. Mainly in the same way that all bloody Midlanders since the Anglo-Saxons have fucking hated London, because it's like this big bolshy city that doesn't do what it's told half the time, and also a Labour stronghold, and so therefore, traditionally a Labour stronghold, so and a dissenter stronghold, and all sorts of strongholds, and full of foreigners, and so people like the Tory party have never liked London particularly. So that was the period, and the GLC had tried to put in Fair's Fair, which is looks like tremendously ahead of its time as a thing to do, and so the tube was run down and dirty and not very salubrious, but it was also the tube. It was just the tube. It's when you're a Londoner, you don't think of these things. You're not coming there as a tourist. You're not going, oh, look at this place, it's very dirty. It's just where you grew up. It's just what you got to go to Hendon, to go to the RAF museum. I must go to the RAF museum. I'll go up that, up to Hendon on the Northern Line. I'll go down to Brixton to go to the Academy. That's how you think of it. You think of it as a kind of utilitarian conduit through which you go. You're not thinking, it's not until like 30 years later that I'm thinking in terms of how actual mass transit systems within an urban environment work. Now I go, oh, look, this is a very clever bit of social engineering that you do this, or that's not a very clever, or we really need a tram system here. That's what I do now, but that's 40, 50 years later. When I was writing transit, it was like, you don't really get coherent thought when you're writing. Coherent thought is what you come out with at the end. Because there is no coherent thought when I'm writing. My writing process is very instinctual, very I don't know what the right word for it is. Regimented is not the right word, because people can write without being regimented. It's not considered. Okay, themes emerge, and then I latch hold of them, and then I ride them to the end of the book. I don't think to myself. Sometimes I think, I'm going to do a book about this, and it turns to be a book about that, and I'm like, okay, fine. That's a load of research I did for no apparent reason. Like the book before this one, Amongst Our Weapons, that was, there was going to be a lot more other stuff in it that never got in. And then bloody Glossop turns up. I'm suddenly in Manchester going, I'm in Manchester dealing with the ghost of airmen that crashed on the bloody Pennines. I mean, I didn't expect to be there. Right? But there I was at the western end of the Snake Pass going, okay, I'm at the western end of the Snake. If I can't turn this into a story. And characters were just popping up, like, Glossop, the River Glossop just turned up. Just, okay, fine, just go with it. I don't worry about, I do worry about it because all writers worry about it. But I don't think to myself, those books that gives you kind of story structures and things like that are not aimed at me, because I don't think like that. What I do, though, is because I trained as a scriptwriter, is I automatically do structure. So structure is something that just automatically happens while I'm writing. I'm automatically thinking, we're about halfway through. We better be picking up the pace here or lowering the pace, or we've had too much good times, we better have some miserable times here. But in that kind of terms, but I don't sit down with a chart and work out my structure. I've tried, God knows I've tried in an effort to speed up the process, but nope. Never works, never stay on the chart, always end up in Glossop, the black hole of the Pennines.
I can think of a few worse places to be fair.
It's very nice. I like Glossop.
It's a wonderful name as well. There's something Glossop.
Also apparently the model for Royston Vasey. You got to love a town that's the model for Royston Vasey. So.
Very much so, very much so. Now, of course, Transit introduced Kadiatu, who's a fascinating character, and obviously with her heritage being a descendant of the brig in a distant way. Where did that come from? Just to Tyler, was that just sort of the inner plan and then going?
That's me. That's just me going, fuck it, I'm going to stick some black people in, because I'd spent most of my career up until that point having them taken out of my scripts. So I was going, right. And I just like the idea that the Brigadier had a black descendant. It was just fun. And then all that other stuff about being a super soldier and the stuff, that all kind of like just emerged as I was writing it. It's all it's a bit 1980s. That whole character is very 1980s in the sense of like, all super conditioned super soldier with conflict, which I would like to point out is ahead of its time. But these characters just arrive and then they just annoy me until they get a better part, usually. You have no idea what Bernice was like, because she was so pissed off with her part that she just nagged me. That's why she's got a slightly bigger part in the next book, because it's like, nag. You wrote me really badly. You put me in a coma for the fucking whole book. Yeah,
but I think I'd say at the time Transit came out, I was 18. That was December '92, and I really enjoyed it because it's
a Marmite book. It's a Marmite book. Some people really liked it. Some people really hated it. Very few people were indifferent to it. Even the people that go meh, what I call the charge of the meh brigade, which is like whenever you write something, someone always wants to be the first person to be like, put a comment at the bottom going, I thought it was meh. Right, doesn't matter what it is. I'm not just talking about my work here. I'm talking about everybody's work. Right, there's that people are rushing to be the first person to call something mid. That's now mid. It was meh, but it's now mid. Right, so it's like, I thought it was totally mid. And so, but I didn't get very much mid. I got quite a lot of, I hate it, it's terrible, it's not Doctor Who. And I got a lot of people, this is the new thing. We are going forward into the future. And neither of those is really true. I thought it was quite a traditional story myself, but hey, the background was just yeah. I mean, come on, the Ice Warriors in there. How traditional can you get?
Yeah. I thought exactly what you say. I can imagine this almost being part of season 17, with Tom Baker and Lala and K9. And the fact is,
not with that budget.
Well, you know what I mean. It could that sort of the storyline. Effectively, could be Interstellar Tunnel, and it could be.
Oh yeah. No, because you got to remember the Channel Tunnel was being built at that time. You see, so it's like it's all fits in with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was zeitgeisting at the time.
Zeitgeisting, yeah. Well, floating along the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
I don't so much follow the zeitgeist as get swept downstream by the zeitgeist. Like everybody else, really. That's why they call it the zeitgeist.
Yeah, but I think that, I remember the Doctor Who magazine letters page was inundated with outraged people, but there was somebody who wrote in as well at the same time saying, what are you all getting so worked up about? We're moving on. We can't just stay in the past. We're doing something new, and that's the thing that I really enjoyed. That it was pushing the envelope and taking us to new territory.
Well, I think the nicest thing anyone ever said about it, from my opinion, was I think Paul Cornell, who said, we read it and then we just thought after this nothing's going to stay the same. I mean, I think it was Paul Cornell who said that, and that was the nicest thing. I think. I mean, in terms of like praise for a writer, that's the praisiest thing you can say to a writer. Is after that, nothing was the same ever again. It's like huge ego expanding. But yeah.
Now, you mentioned they're getting caught up in the river, and of course, we are going to talk now about your latest novel, having gone from your first one. So we're talking about Stone and Sky, the latest in the Rivers of London series. So for those who don't know, maybe briefly sum it up and who Peter Grant is.
Why do I always have to do this? It's like, I feel like I should produce a key card or something. I write supernatural police procedurals. My main character is called Peter Grant. He starts as a PC. He's actually going up the ranks now. Who, while guarding a crime scene in Covent Garden one night, interviews a ghost and finds himself propelled into the world of the supernatural and the branch of the police force that deals with that. And immediately begins to, because this is the kind of person he is, changing it completely out of all recognition and learning magic. And that's basically what happens. And now with 10 books in, wow. Scary, isn't it?
Well, it's not just books, there's comics as well, which of course a certain Mr. Andrew Cartmel, who some people may be familiar with that name for some reason.
Andrew Cartmel. Yeah, Andrew Cartmel and I have always collaborated. The comics was the first time we ever tried to write something together, which was a mistake, because we're so different in he writes in bursts. He's got that kind of ex-journalist thing where he writes 6,000 words and then trims out 4,000 words, which I hate, because that's 4,000 words. How could you kill them? So he got fed up with. So we ended up working on a basis where one of us would be the lead writer and the other one would supervise. And so that was the only way we could make it work. So that was a lot of fun. But he was very good because he's got a very analytical mind. He's got a very detail-orientated mind. And so therefore he would spot things like when they drew the pictures. I'm just like, oh my God, look at that picture. It's great. And he'd go, no, look, in the script, it says they're going that way, and that's definitely not them going that way. And okay. And I'm like, all right, fine, whatever you say, Andrew. See, so he's kind of quality control as well. So it's like,
yeah. So we've got this new novel. Now, the first time I spoke to you was in my previous job at Scottish Field magazine before I joined the NHS in communications. And that was when I saw you were coming up to do the Granite Noir Festival. And I was wondering if, of course, that was pre-COVID, once you actually got there, was that what inspired this book, the trip to...
No, this is Stuart McBride's fault. This is all Stuart McBride's fault, okay? There is no reason I would be up in Aberdeen if it hadn't been for Stuart McBride. It's just that simple. And I thought I could come up with all these bollocks reasons why I did Aberdeen. It's Logan McRae and Roberta Steele, basically. That's why I'm in Aberdeen. He managed to make Aberdeen such an interesting place. I thought, I must go up there and piss all over his territory. So, as I did with Phil Rickman in Herefordshire. See, it's not my fault, right? They make these places sound interesting, and I think, and they always live fucking difficult to get to places. Like Herefordshire is almost as hard to get to as Aberdeen. You're 7.5 hours to Aberdeen, 5 hours to Herefordshire. Why I can't read a book by someone set in Barnet, I don't know, but hey, I probably have thoughts. But no, it's basically he introduced me to Aberdeen, and then I had an opportunity. I went up and did an event there, and then I had an opportunity to read up on it, and then I discovered the Rubislaw Quarry. And that was it, really. Once I discovered the Rubislaw Quarry, which I just find the most fascinatingly and most totally Scottish thing ever, in that you basically drilled a hole into your city that's about 90 meters deep. It's below sea level, right? Half the granite of the entire country comes from anything is built off of granite. It comes from that quarry. And then in the 70s, they just let it fill up with water. So you've got this, it's still rusty. You can't let people dive in there because it's full of rusty cranes and jagged bits of rock, and it's kind of and it's in the middle of this posh suburb, right, with all the oil companies kind of overlooking it, and so they just put a fence around it and just left it. It's and if you go try and find it, which I did, I went to have a look at it, and it's you can't get anywhere near it. It's like no, nothing to see here, no quarry here. If it wasn't for Google Maps, you wouldn't know it was there at all, really. And it's fascinating, the history of it was fascinating. But also I thought, if I can't use this in a book, I don't know what my name is. My name's not Ben, and so after that it was just a question of why are they in Aberdeen? What are they doing in Aberdeen? And then it kind of spread, because I needed a reason, and I thought it was a big cat. Well, that put them up near Mintlaw and Ellen and places like that. Ellen is great because I was taking a lot of buses, so you have the bus kind of interchange at Ellen, and I've decided in Grampian in Aberdeenshire, that's where all the supernatural people meet. They all meet, and that kind of it's like the meeting place for supernatural forces. 3 o'clock in the morning, if you're standing at that bus stop at 3 o'clock in the morning, all the various supernatural creatures of Aberdeen are coming having their coffee and tea, and also convenient for the Tesco's. So it's like I just loved that sort of thing. I just kept off. I visited the lighthouse in the Broch, and it's like I mean, Aberdeenshire is just full of this stuff. Like, there's a castle, right? So they built the first lighthouse on top of the castle, but the lighthouse was too heavy, so it was going to break the castle. So they've got the guy who makes lighthouse, I forgot his name, famous guy, lighthouse guy, right? I think it was Stevenson. I think it was the Stevenson or somebody like that.
It was Robert Louis Stevenson's family, yeah.
Yeah, and he comes in, he looks at it and goes, oh, shit, I can't knock down this castle, because by then people were beginning to worry about that sort of thing. So he looks around, can't find anywhere else to put it. So he builds it so that literally, right, you've got a castle. And then growing up from the bottom of the castle up through the ceiling of the castle is a traditional lighthouse. And I just thought, and also you learn things like they used to have foghorns on the headland, right? And apparently kids that wanted to get off school the next day would go, when it was foggy, would go and stand in front of them so they would deafen themselves. So they could go, oh, I deafened myself in front of the thing, and wouldn't have to go. I mean, that's an extreme way of getting out of school, if you ask me. And then you look at it and you find out about where the fishing villages are. And then down the road is where they filmed Local Hero, not on the West Coast at all, probably because they didn't want to get eaten by midges. And, you know, and I just sat there going, God, there's so much stuff here. There was just so much stuff. Then you go to Mintlaw and you find out about the what they called the Blenheim of the North, and you just, it was just like, it was all there. It was all there just waiting for me to turn it into a story. It's a lovely experience for a writer when you just turn up and footy. You couldn't make up footy, right? You just, the weird esplanade with its kind of bomb shelter supermarket that sells everything followed, you know, and I would so cute as a kid, I would have killed to have a pleasure beach like that, like all that stuff, like, but it's all tucked away from, like, hiding from the sea, and you go, why is that? Or sometimes the waves come right over the esplanade, you know, and it's just brilliant. And then so it was in some ways it was a beautiful place to write a book set in, you know. There's
a lot of mythological stuff around Aberdeenshire.
Oh yeah, no,
like the Easter Quarthy Stone Circle, and there are so many stone circles around Aberdeenshire that back in '94, in fact, this is my last week working in Inverurie, they did an official stone circle trail at the council, and who did they get to open it? Peter Davison.
Yeah, you're thinking Stones of Blood, aren't you? Yeah. Yes, well, I was thinking that when I went to see Achy Bray. I was thinking, oh, Stones of Blood. I nearly had one of them fall on someone and eat them, but I couldn't quite get there. But Achy Bray, then you find out, you know, Achy Bray, you got a stone circle, that's spooky, right? Next to a forest, quite spooky. Former horse fair. They used, up until, I think, the late 40s, there used to be a horse fair there. Aha! Story. It's just, you know, it's like you don't have to do anything at all, you really. You just like join up the dots and you get a story. The Orkney, I went up to the Orkney because I realised I hadn't been on a boat for 40 years and couldn't remember what it was like. So, of course, I didn't want to go on a boat where it was sunny. I had to go on a boat because I realised I was going to end up on a platform. I didn't think they were going to let me on a platform because, apart from anything else, I didn't want to do the thing where they drop you into a swimming pool upside down. That didn't sound like a good fun thing for me to do. So I thought, I've got to get on a boat. And I thought, well, I'll take a ferry. And I would have liked to take the ferry to Bergen, but they don't do the ferry to Bergen anymore. So I went to the Orkney. And I went to the Orkney, and there was a bookshop. And I did what I always do when I go into a local bookshop. I saw the local history and mythology section and just said, I'll just have all your books on mythology. And that is where I got the mermaids from. Mm-hmm. I got them from they're not called mermaids, but they're part of the mermaid kind of legendarium, and they're bad guys in the book in the Orkney mythology. They're the bad guys, right? Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really kind of interesting. And they had an Atlantis-like island that sank into the sea, and I thought, I'm having that. And then the Selkies turned up, and they're not really Selkies because obviously seals are mammals and they've got gills, which I don't think a lot of people noticed. So that's why you can't call them Selkies, because that's, yeah. But that whole thing, and then I had to fit it into the legendarium of the Rivers of London books, where we obey the laws of thermodynamics. So you can't just like do weird shit, without a workaround. And that, I mean, and it was brilliant. And then I just wrote it, and it got written. But I've spent a lot of time in Aberdeen. I can now walk around Aberdeen with total confidence.
Did you make it to Pittodrie?
No, I didn't. I didn't make it to Torry either. I wanted to do. I know. I just once you're over the river, you don't go back over the river unless you're really unlucky.
Yeah.
Also, don't drive. You see, and that area is very, very car dependent. You know, you got National Express whisk you up and down for a fee, but it's very, very car dependent. So a lot of places I went to, I had to kind of like tramp over there or get a taxi.
Yeah.
But I could have written 8 books. You know, you could write 10, and obviously Stuart McBride has 10 books just set in Aberdeen without repeating yourself, without ever repeating any of your themes or anything. You could write 10 books. But the beautiful thing about Aberdeen is this dour granite city that in the 70s and 80s suddenly basically fish. Right? It's basically a city based on fish and some light trading, right? And also because it's like the easiest way to get up the coast of Scotland from that point up to Fraserburgh and Peterhead. So then in the 70s, 80s, just like a fuck ton of money just gets dropped on it from a great height. All this oil money. And so you've got this kind of weird dichotomy of the city. And you can't resist. I can't resist that kind of stuff.
It's an amazing place.
It is an amazing place. I liked it. Also, the other consideration which was I don't want to say it's the first consideration, but it was on the back of my mind, is when non-Scots go to do stories in Scotland, they either put them in the Central Belt or they put them in the Highlands and the Islands. And I thought, no one ever bloody does Aberdeen. So I did Aberdeen, basically. That was my thinking. No one ever does Aberdeen. And also, foreign language. Right? They speak a language that the Scots don't understand. Hooray!
Doric, fit like.
Yeah, so like they all speak Doric, so it's great because it's a language that the other Scots don't understand. So I'm on a level playing field as an Englishman in that part of Scotland. I'm on a level playing field. Someone from Edinburgh has no idea what the fuck they're saying either. It's just brilliant. I love the whole.
Amazing because my dad grew up in a farm in Kintore, and when I was we'd always go back and visit his family up there, my family as well, obviously, and my dad and my great uncle Stanley, they would be chatting, and my sister and I had no idea what they were saying because they were chatting in Doric, and he just clicked into this because he, was a childhood having grown up on this farm, and he went straight back to it. Then when he moved back down here to the Central Belt, he had to get elocution lessons because nobody understood him at all. So he was always very well spoken. But yeah, I completely sympathise with the Doric and all those different terms.
Also, I mean, it's not even like there's like a one Doric, because you've got like your countryside Doric, your kind of Doric, and then you've got your Aberdeen Doric, and you've got your kind of obscure fishing village that nobody knows exists Doric, and it's just brilliant. And you can't learn what's like Tuchta and things like that. It's like.
Yep.
I was very happy when I came up with the phrase "I'll get you back to the Tuchta Riviera." I was just all right. I'm there now. I'm here. I've got this place.
You've arrived.
Yeah, I've arrived. I've arrived at the point where I can now make jokes about it. You see, that's like when you can make jokes about something. That's when you can write about it.
Yeah, because I think that very much you absolutely embraced the culture, the food, and the language, the locations, and particularly as we were talking about before we started, the macaroni pie.
Yes, which is macaroni pie. I mean, if you have there are two symbols of cooking, right? There's not leaving out rowies for the moment, okay, which is the other one, and all the deep fried shenanigan. Well, that's pretty Scottish wide, right? But the thing I really liked was the idea that you put a pie between two large floppy white baps, possibly with tomato ketchup as well, right? And eat that as a sandwich. And the other one was the idea of putting macaroni cheese inside a pie so that you can eat your macaroni cheese while walking along. And that's basically, and I went to what was reputedly the best pie shop in Aberdeen and got myself a macaroni pie. And after that, I thought, this is going in the book. This has to go in the book. It's just so extraordinary.
Yep.
It has to go in the book. And it does get mentioned about 5 times. I think macaroni pies get mentioned just because I found it so extraordinary. But I found that very interesting. I personally found it very much to my taste, Scottish cooking, because I like grease and carbohydrates and meats. I'm very keen on German cooking for much the same reason, because of the sheer suet basedness of it. And as we were discussing, the great thing about Scottish cooking is it's the exact opposite of Mediterranean cooking. The Mediterranean, if there's the Mediterranean diet, you draw a line and you get as far as you can go in the other direction. That's Scottish cuisine.
Of course, you can buy macaroni pies in supermarkets here.
Apparently, yes.
There was also Greggs used to do a macaroni pie, and when they stopped doing it, it was front page news in the Scottish edition.
Oh no! You see, if I'd known that, that would have gone in the book.
Oh,
if I'd known that was like, I didn't know. I just latched onto it because it's such an extraordinary thing. Obviously didn't do enough research on macaroni pies. If I'd known that had to happen with Greggs, that would have totally gone in the book.
Yeah.
Maybe someone would have said that. Blinshaw would have pointed out that there was a riot. He probably would have exaggerated a bit.
No, it's absolutely true. But the other thing you can also get is a kebab meat pie.
Oh, I didn't try that. That sounds nice, though. Kebab meat pie.
Again, they have them in my local Morrison's, just 12 minutes away from here. So I will send you some down if you need them.
I might. I'm actually having to walk from Queen Street to Central on my way back from bloody Scotland.
Right.
So what I'll do is I'll look out for a Greggs or a Morris.
Greggs don't do the kebab pie, but there's none in between. There's a Sainsbury's nearby, and we'll talk about this later.
Yes, I'll get instructions. I've only got 22 minutes to make the connection, so I will meet
you with pre-prepared goods so you can get them and take them on the go. I'll be in the office that day.
I'll be back. I'm coming up to Scotland again. Now that I've been up there, you're never going to get rid of me.
Well, that's good. You can be.
Now that I know where it all is, you see, it's like everywhere else. I actually know kind of like Northern England and Scotland better than I know the home counties, because they don't send me to the home counties very often to do book events. But I've actually spent quite a lot of time now going up and down the bloody west and east coast main lines, stopping off at all the various locations in between, and doing that kind of central belt run. Now that I'm going to bloody Scotland and stuff like that, well, isn't Stirling a strange city? Oh God, St Andrews. What a weird place.
Yes, it is.
No, the train station is not in the town. You have to get there, get off the train, get a cab, and it's full of Americans playing golf. It's just extraordinary. I've never been to a place that had so many American golfers at one time. And it wasn't even like particularly, it wasn't the summer. It was just like, I thought, okay. And all they talk about, you can just, because they're Americans, you can listen to their conversation at breakfast. And they were just going, oh, who have you played? Oh, I managed to get a couple of rounds in at such and such a golf course. And I just thought, wow, that is an obsessive group of people. I thought, it's a nice bookshop, though. That's why we were there.
Yeah, it's very nice. It's a lovely place. I remember I was coach of East Kilbride Ladies Hockey Club when we won the Scottish Cup there in the year 2000. There we go. That's my main memory of St Andrews. But
yeah, but I see. I love places that are weird like that, and it is a weird place. If you go up to that thing, and you've got essentially a cliff down to the seaside, so you're like sitting in a hotel. There's a road at the top, and then it's basically almost a sheer drop down to where the sea is.
You've got the ruin of the church there, the abbey, and then that's you gone.
You just think, well, that's dramatic. That is, and it's a good thing it's not further south, because it would be sinking into the sea at that point.
Yeah.
That was in East Anglia, that cliff would be going woof, woof. Yeah. I think my next out of London thing, I want to do a crumbly cliff in East Anglia. I like the idea of that. Or Cornwall, I haven't decided. I feel like I should knock off all the countries.
There you go. Take them one by one.
Wales, Cornwall.
Yeah. How did you find taking Peter and the rest of the team out of their usual setting? Because I thought it seemed a very natural fit. Everybody just seemed to be loving it.
It was like every so often you have to take your characters out of their comfort zone. So the good thing in terms of the mythology is you take Peter out of his normal network of thing. You get to do some of that fun things where like that Peter's frantic networking radar just kicks in and he starts making networkers as he goes, which is kind of funny, which I didn't even realize that's what he was like until he started doing that right in the book. But you take Beverly away from the Thames Valley, and so therefore she's not as superpowered when she's out of the Thames Valley, so you can put her in a bit of peril because she's not all powerful at that point. And because like if that had been off Southend, she would have just gone down, grabbed the diving bell and just hauled it back up to the sea. Actually, she probably would have persuaded a whale to do it. See, but up in Aberdeen, she's not nearly so kind of in her own territory, and so therefore it's much more interesting to do that kind of stuff. It was fun. I mean, Nightingale's one of those kind of old British posh families who probably had relatives all over the Scottish Highlands in weird crumbly castles and stuff, and so therefore it was fun to sort of stick him back up onto the grouse moors basically, have him go hunting, and it was nice to send Dr. Ollie'd up to see an old friend. Let's just think about Dr. Ollie's friend, and then to take someone very, very urban like Abigail and Indigo, a very, very kind of close-knit London team, and then send them up to Scotland. And then I thought, well, there's got to be foxes in Scotland, which there were. I saw foxes while I was walking around. I saw one in Aberdeen. I thought, they've infiltrated the Granite City. That's a job.
I actually saw one in my walk this morning. So
okay, yeah. Well, Glasgow, I saw a couple just walking around Glasgow last time. So, but Aberdeen is a tougher proposition because it really is stone city. It's like there's not a lot of grass, but they have all they have like all those rail lines and the disused rail lines that run through up to the north and out and up. Yeah. To Inverness and stuff like that, and they're obviously using those as wildlife calls. Also, it's not a very big city. This is the thing that really struck me when I was there. It feels like a grimy, huge city, but actually it's got about 2/3 of the population of my home borough. Literally, Camden has like a third more people than Aberdeen, and you just think it doesn't feel like that. It feels like it's like a proper city, and I like that. I like that about it. It's a place with attitude, but you can walk across it, which is quite good if you can't drive.
Yeah, and it's something that I also noticed is, of course, as always, some lovely little Doctor Who references in there that I think people will be entertained by. Peter Capaldi gets mentioned, a couple of the word Daleks used a couple of times.
Yes.
And at one point there's also mention of the creature from the pit. Was that deliberate, Ben?
Oh yeah, no, the creature from the pit, it's all deliberate. Those Doctor Who references, I mean, I have to fight not to put too many in. So it's not like I'm going, I shall put in a Doctor Who reference. My brain just generates Doctor Who. I mean, there are several things that my brain will just generate, or it's constantly fighting to put Monty Python, Blackadder, Doctor Who. That's British culture, basically, right? British pop culture of the 70s and 80s, right? Keeps Rent-A-Ghost, right? All of these things like Robert's Robots, all of these things keep... And of course, Peter wouldn't know Rent-A-Ghost from a hole in the ground, so I can't put them in directly. So Peter knows Blackadder jokes, right? And he knows Doctor Who because he's a bit of a nerd, right? But the Monty Python he doesn't know. So all the Monty Python jokes are diegetic, non-diegetic jokes, as they say, right? So I have to be careful, and then on top of that, there's a kind of an additional layer of things that just keep... I mean, I cannot sort of get out of a vehicle without thinking, I want a nice clean dispersal this time, which is like a quote from Aliens, right? It was a completely random quote from Aliens. There are certain films that I watched a lot because I grew up pre-VHS, you see. So if you wanted to see a film more than once, you had to go and see it again. So what you do is, rather than pay twice, you just stay in the cinema. So I actually watched Aliens 3 times in a row, right, in the flea pit. So it's burned it sort of like, especially the theatrical version has burned its sort of consciousness into my consciousness, so every so often my brain just will was like, somebody wake up Hicks, right, just because let's nuke the site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure. All that stuff just sits in my brain, constantly trying to leak into the books. And so what I have to, and the same with the Doctor Who, because when I wrote for Doctor Who, that was before VHSs and of the Doctor Who was available. And I walked into John Nathan Turner's office, and he had all the VHS tapes, like literally hand-recorded VHS tapes of all the. And I just said, well, I'll just have those, and I took them home, and I watched every single Doctor Who that was available, which isn't all of them because some of them weren't available at that time, in a period of about a month, and that kind of broke my brain a little bit, I think, at that point. So that was kind of interesting. That was, that sort of things. But these things get lodged, and there's all sorts of stuff from my kind of childhood that are just lodged in my brain. And so it's really not a question of putting them in; it's a question of keeping them out. It's like the bloody foxes, really. Foxes want to be in every single story, and I'm going, no, you can't be in this story. Oh, we've got to be in this story. Get back, you're vermin. Get back.
I also noticed early on the phrase "genius loci" appearing, and I thought, is that a reference to your Benny book, or is that deliberate? Or
no. I wish I hadn't called the Benny book "Genius Loci" now, because No, it's the same. It's
Is the saying of this.
the next Benny book would have been called Terra Incognito, which gives you an indication of it. It was just because it was like clever. It's me being clever. Remember, this is like Benny book's quite an early book, so it's like that's just me being clever. But once you decide you're going to have an animist universe, and it's an animist universe that's been filtered through the sensibility of 17th century natural philosophy, then it's going to be a genius loci. Right, and you have to say you can't say genius because in those days they were very strict about genius loci, or I think it's something genius locorum if it's the plural. I lose track. I have to keep looking this up every single time. I have to look up what the plurals of fastigia is and everything like that because I just forget. I forget. All my Latin just drains out of my ears because I never did it at school, so it's not like it was permanently in there. So it's all stuff I kind of picked up on the fly. So. Genius loci is an interesting. I mean, it's just a coincidence. You can't buy it anymore. It's gone out of print. Yeah. I've got some copies. If people are interested in forking over really large sums,
I've got a copy somewhere in the loft. I think
quite a lot of people have copies in the loft. I mean, I think they only printed about 150. So.
But I did enjoy your season 27 stuff with Andrew. That was great.
Yeah, that was fun. It was mostly Andrew. But it was fun. But he couldn't cut me out of the Matraxi altogether. So because it was me that came up with the opening, so that was just like. But it's so funny that if you look at my Wikipedia page, there's more stuff on a series of bloody Doctor Who that I didn't have anything to do with, that never happened, right? Than there is on my bloody Rivers of London books. You just sit there going, oh well, that's what I'm well known for. Fine, I'll just go die now. No one will care.
No, please don't do that. I will.
I have no plans of dying anytime soon.
Excellent. Neither do I. So excellent stuff. So I suppose then that see, this is book 10. So book 11 underway and from.
Oh yeah, book 11's been underway for about 6 months now. I mean, the research phase of it's now going into the writing stage. Starts probably next week sometime. Yeah. At the end of I've just got a couple of things to finish off on, like little tiny short stories and stuff that have to be done.
Yep.
And projects that I'm committed to. So once I've done that, then I think the actual writing is going to start. Don't know what it's about yet. It's about stuff. It's set during lockdown. That's all I've got at the moment.
Yeah. Will it be as much fun doing the research for that one as it was doing trips to Aberdeen and macaroni pies? I suspect it may.
Yeah, yes and no. Right now, there's the Elizabeth line, so quite a lot of London, which is quite difficult to get to for me, is now quite easy to get to, and so therefore, I suspect there might be some Southall and there might be some Abbey Woods and places that used to be quite hard to get to if you're on public transport. I think so, and also once you've gone up and down 7.5 hours down bloody LNER, the Zuma trains, right? The idea of taking an hour and a half to get across to the other side of London has lost some of its some of its laziness. Although I am a colossally lazy person, it has to be said. I would want to put. There's so many things I want to do. I want to put the Sheerness pumping station in, which is this fantastic Victorian cathedral to shit that Basil Jett built, and I don't know why. I just want to put it in, and I want to go to Southall because it's a very important part of London, but I've never been there. I don't have any idea about what Southall's like at all, but now it's a stop on the Elizabeth line. I thought, okay, every time I go past it now, then it's like, oh, Southall. So that's calling me. But for some, my story might never get there. The story might never get there in any way whatsoever. I do not know. I never know where these bloody stories are going when I start them. I think they're going in one direction and they just rabbit off in another direction completely. So, well,
I look forward to it, whatever direction it may be.
Oh yes, so do I. Then because I'll have finished it, and then I can go. Finish that book. Then it'll be book 12. Going, another book. Oh. I'm doing some time jumps to catch up with myself because it's starting to get very high. It's starting to turn into historical fiction. I was writing, if you think about the one Stone Sky set in 2018,
yeah,
and I was writing it in 2023, right? So it's yeah. 2023, 2024, that's I thought, right, if I keep on at this rate, it's going to be, the next book will be written, it'll be 10 years, it'll be 10 years behind. And I thought, I can't do that. I've got, because it gets hard to get the information. Like some of the information just disappears. You lose information. You know, a lot of the kind of little details that I like to put into books have a half-life, and you just start running out of them. And so, therefore, my plan is to catch up with myself a little bit and then slow down again. But it does mean that Peter will be an inspector in the next book. He'll finally be detective inspector Peter Grant. And so it was just quite a funny line I just wrote the other day, which is like they all turn up to a crime scene, and there's Gulid, she's also an inspector, because if you look at the time track of likely promotions, they're all quite high-flying police officers, and so therefore they're all going up the same tree, right? And Peter particularly, because they need an inspector in the Folly, and so therefore he's going to get promoted as fast as possible. He's like fast-tracked into inspectorhood. So he turns on Danny Wickford is there, who's also now an inspector, because actually she was ahead of Peter in terms of promotion track anyway. On inspectors going to take, so I wasn't expecting both inspectors, and she goes, yeah, we've run out of constables. And the real explanation is that you have to pay constables for overtime, and you don't have to pay inspectors for overtime. That comes out of their budget. So Peter has to think about the budget now, so it's not.
Oh, I like that.
You have to pay sergeants, and PCs get paid overtime if they go over their shift, but inspectors are expected to work the hours of the job, so they're not expected to.
Fantastic.
They have autonomy. Quotation marks. Sorry, I was quote.
Yeah, absolutely. Ben, thank you so much. This has been brilliant.
It's been fun, and it's been nice to talk about Doctor Who. I know that sounds really weird, but actually I don't talk about Doctor Who as much as I used to. I mean, even at the beginning of the Rivers of London process, I used to get at least a third of the audience used to be made up of Doctor Who fans, and now it's kind of slowly dying out, or at least some of them transformed into Rivers of London fans, I suppose, which is good.
You can be both.
Yeah, but they're a bit more hesitant about asking Doctor Who questions at Q&A sessions. But I always get at least one remembrance. I always sign at least one remembrance.
Well, I got you to sign my Transit and Survivor Set.
Occasionally I get an also people and don't get me to sign So Vile a Sin. It's so much more valuable if I don't sign it. Unless you can get Kate to sign it as well, it's so much more valuable if I don't sign it. Just telling you, that's the most valuable book, ironically. So Vile a Sin is my most valuable secondary market book. So get me to sign it. I'll sign everything else, though. I'll sign other people's books.
Well, you did ask 3 times, was I sure? And I said yes. So.
Yes. Yeah, well, also a pristine Transit or pristine also people. These were pulped, and so therefore, by definition, they're just going to get more and more valuable as people reach death. You know, I've got about 8. They're I'm saving those for my old age retirement.
There you go, fantastic. Well, further down the line, Ben, would you come back? Maybe we chat next Rivers book and perhaps chat about.
I will chat about anything. You know me, anything, but I'd rather than do work. That's my philosophy.
Been fantastic. No, thank you so much, Ben.
I like Zoom. This is the reason I like Zoom interviews, right? Especially recorded Zoom interviews as opposed to live. I don't like doing live events because you're kind of like shouting into the void. But when you do like something like this is just like an interview. It's fine. I can do that.
Yeah, and the fact that we're both geeks helps as well.
Yeah. The geeks.
Yeah, the geeks shall inherit the earth, as somebody once.
We have inherited the earth, you know. Once we get rid of that Trump guy, we'll be fine.
Yeah, but no, I'll keep an eye on when Bloody Stirling is, because when you're on that train, I'll make sure I'm in the office that day, and I'll send you a text again, and then you can tell me that's me arrived, and I will meet you at Queen Street. I will give you some macaroni pies and some kebab pies for you to take down the road.
That would be great, because like I the freezer soon. I can live off that for about 3 weeks.
Oh, I'll give you a good supply. Don't you worry.
Still, what is it from Glasgow? It's still 4 hours. So
yeah,
throw in some cold things in there.
Yeah, you can eat a macaroni pie cold, but I wouldn't go with the kebab pie. It needs to be.
No. I'm taking those home. Those are going in the oven. I'm going to heat those up for my nostalgic Scottish moment.
Absolutely. Well, we will make it happen. I will say I'll keep an eye on when Bloody Stirling is, and I will text you, and then I'll make sure I'm in the office that day, and I will get you at Queen Street. There you go.
I will love that. I will text you. We are approaching Queen Street. We are almost at Queen Street.
Sounds good to me.
All right.
Ben, thank you once again.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Pleasure. Cheers. Bye-bye. A massive thanks to Ben for taking the time to have that conversation. Hugely appreciated. Could have chatted all day, actually. So, if you want to know more about Stone and Sky, it's available now for £20 in the UK, and it's available from Orion Books. The cover blurb tells us, "This isn't London. The rules are different up here, and so are the allegiances." Detective Sergeant Peter Grant takes a much-needed holiday up in Scotland, and he'll need one more when this is over. If the more the merrier, then this gang should be ecstatic as his partner Beverly, their young twins, his mum, dad, his dad's band and their dodgy manager all tag along. Even his boss, DCI Thomas Nightingale, takes in the coastal airs as he trains Peter's cousin Abigail in the arcane arts. And they'll need them too, because Scotland's Granite City has more than its fair share of history and mystery, myth and murder. When a body is found in a bus stop, fresh from the sea, the case smells fishy from the off. Something may be stirring beyond the bay, but there's something far stranger in the sky. It's a fantastic read. So, as I said, Stone and Sky is available now from all good bookshops, and you can buy it online too. So now, before we continue and look at the reaction to Transit, and boy oh boy, you've got a treat coming up, we've got an extended reaction to it, we're going to hear a second extract from the book, and once again it's read for us by Craig.
The Stop. His mind was like an orchestra after a mix-up at the printers, each section playing from a different score. Someone, perhaps a flautist, was playing a clear, lucid solo that spoke of life as organised patterns of energy. He could believe that, hadn't he met the occasional intelligent energy field in his time? It might be living in the tunnels, a pattern superimposed over the carrier waves. Was that possible? "Hey, Doctor!" The string section was playing a single chord, endlessly repeated in a thumping rhythm, Stravinsky's Rite of Spring. Subterranean forces gathering out of sight. The pitch spoke of power, the rhythm of danger. "Hey, Doctor, why don't you—" The woodwinds were playing honky-tonk, gaily improvising around the polyphones. Spirit music, percolating up from old Africa, work music, wedding music, funeral music, smoky dens full of life in the orchestra pit of his imagination. He would have to get back on that one. "Hey, Doctor, why don't you just stick your head up?" Sharp sounds from the percussion section, rim shots and rolls. Firecracker sounds with zips, whirs and ricochets. Below that a drumming sound, coconut shells on damp earth. I was sent to military academy as an orphan. Horses' hooves on the overripe fields of heaven. I wasn't very good at it though, because I was such a bad shot. Some mad drummer hit the rim a bit hard because wood splintered. There was a smoking hole in the upturned trestle table 6 centimetres to the left of his head. I've got much better since then. "Hey, Doctor, why don't you just stick your head up so I can blow it off?" Benny. This is not the time, thought the doctor, for extended metaphors. There was another bang and another hole, this one to the right of where he was crouching and lower down. Whatever it was that Benny was firing at him, it went through wood. The trestle table he'd dived behind was only protection because she couldn't see him. He looked around for Kadiatu, but she was out of sight. She'd jumped in the other direction when the shooting started. "Come on, Doctor," called Benny. "I haven't got all day." The doctor judged from her voice that she was about 30 metres away, a little to the right, standing by the entrance to the cavern. Somebody else was with her. He could hear another pair of feet shuffling on the floor. The doctor considered his options. If he stood up, Benny might shoot him. On the other hand, there was nowhere to run to, and Benny could just walk over and shoot him anyway. The doctor sprang to his feet. "Don't shoot!" he shouted. Not very original, he was the first to admit, but it had worked in the past. "Why not?" asked Benny. She held the pistol in a one-handed grip, arm extended, elbows slightly bent to absorb the recoil. There was a trick to dodging bullets. It involved the detailed knowledge of the musculature of the forearm and precise timing. The doctor wished he could remember it. Benny's companion was a young woman with nervous eyes. It was obvious to the doctor that she didn't like what was going on, but wasn't about to get in Benny's way. He could understand that. "Why?" Because I've been taken over by a fucking alien intelligence, said Benny. Why do you think? Fascinating, said the doctor. How did that happen? You tell me, Doctor, said Benny. I was stepping out of the TARDIS behind you, and the next thing I know, I woke up in a sewer. What's it like, this possession? Well, at first I thought I might have picked up a spore, one of those hooty things, but it doesn't feel organic enough. This is why you came here, though, isn't it, Doctor? No, said the doctor. Not this time. But this is your kind of deal, your purview, so to speak. Is that why it wants me dead? Benny smiled. It was her normal, ironic smile, all the more sinister for being natural. Don't flatter yourself, Doctor, she said. It doesn't even know you exist. I tried telling it. You speak to it. Let's just say that there are channels of communication. Where are you going? The doctor walked round the table and started towards Benny. It seems unnecessary for us to be shouting at each other. Benny's companion shrank back as the doctor approached. Don't be alarmed, the doctor told her. She's the one with a gun. Stop there, said Benny. The doctor obeyed. He was about 1 metre from Benny, half a metre from the gun's muzzle. It looked much bigger this close, and just out of effective umbrella range. You were saying? I tried to explain that you were its primary danger, but I think it found the concept difficult. It seemed to believe that you were in some way not complex enough to be a threat. Why the gun then? My fortune is linked to its fortune, said Benny. Besides, I think it's in its nature to delegate these matters. So why am I not dead already? I was curious, Doctor. It's a characteristic you and I share. Why else would we be having this conversation? I could be stalling. You are stalling, said Benny, but no one's coming to your rescue this time. Apart from the party of heavily armed troopers coming up the tunnel behind you. It didn't work. Benny's eyes didn't even flicker. Games, said Benny, can only take place within a regulated framework. Your bootlaces are undone? Tried the doctor, hopefully. Well, I've enjoyed our little chat, said Benny, but we have to be going now. You know how it is, things to do, people to see. Nobody move! Yelled an amplified voice from the tunnel. The doctor moved first. He brought his umbrella smartly round and smacked the gun out of Benny's hand. Her eyes followed the weapon as it skittered across the floor and then snapped back to the doctor's face. I never made a stereo for you, said the doctor. The cavern's entrance exploded into brilliant white light.
It's fair to say that Transit proved to be quite a controversial novel at the time of release, and when it was reviewed in Doctor Who magazine issue 195, Gary Russell, who was the reviewer, wasn't the most impressed. He says, let's turn our attention to Ben Aaronovitch's contribution to the ongoing Doctor Who The New Adventures series of novels, Transit. With the heading of Unique, with a question mark, he said, few drama television programmes have lasted longer than Doctor Who. No science fiction series has. One of the reasons for its long-term appeal and success has been the series' ability to appeal to an audience of all ages and backgrounds. It has never seen the need to use either sex, extreme violence, or pages of swearing to sell itself. It has always risen above such depths. With Transit, Virgin Books have taken their most disastrous and totally stupid step yet in making adventures too broad and too deep for the television screen. One would have thought that the adverse reaction a majority of people gave to Genesis would have shown Virgin the direction downwards that their readers don't want Doctor Who taken in. Sorry, Ben Aaronovitch, I'll applaud Remembrance of the Daleks as one of the 80s true classics, and I could even find good points in Battlefield, but Transit has nothing whatsoever to recommend it. It is the most puerile, non-Doctor Who book it has ever been my misfortune to read. The sex scene, as no one ever heard of subtlety before, is ignorable. The constant use of Mary Whitehouse's dreaded F-word is boring, and, frankly, in the idealised history of Doctor Who, totally out of place. But it is the totally dire plot that lets it down. Now, I'm the first to admit to being vaguely computer illiterate. So much of this stuff about subsystems crashing, etc. goes way over my head. I do know enough about artificial intelligence systems, however, to at least follow the basic idea of the book's villain. However, the story is so wrapped up in its own sub-Anthony Burgess hipspeak and techno-jargon that by the time I've looked up a word in the glossary at the back for the third time, and the need for a glossary is always a bad sign, I'm frankly bored. Yes, the bad language disappointed me. Who has survived a long time without it? Why start now? Yes, the sex actually surprised me. I guess I'm too Puritan in my concept of what Doctor Who, the series, is all about. But when I'm bored of reading simply because the plot is too convoluted and self-referential, I just want to give up. If I didn't have to read it to justify a review of it, I'd have given up on Transit after about page 60. Yes, it is a good science fiction story, in a kind of low-grade William Gibson or George Alec Effinger sense, but it lacks the freshness of Andrew Cartmell's derivative but sufficiently intriguing Warhead novel. One other thing that ruined the book for me was the lack of good material for Bernice in this book. She's only just joined, but we don't get to know her at all. Instead, we're offered the decidedly unlikable Cadiatu Lethbridge Stewart, whose only interesting feature, her genetically manipulated creation, is swept under the carpet as she is turned into a kamikaze-like warrior. Everything about Cadiatu represents what is both right and wrong with Transit as a whole. A great science fiction novel masquerading as a totally awful Doctor Who book. For Aaronovitch, a self-confessed Who fan, and therefore an ideal New Adventures writer, to offer us this potage is, frankly, the most disappointing aspect of the entire book range so far. What Virgin and some of their authors are forgetting is that no amount of trying to get the books placed in the adult section of bookstores can alter the fact that the New Adventures are read by an audience as varied in age as the TV series itself. I take pretty high bets that a lot of people, already in two minds about the quality of some New Adventures, will see this as the final straw and give up. I hope I'm wrong. A majority of the books have been great, but Transit, for me at least, contains everything that Doctor Who has never been and, frankly, should never aspire to be. Now, normally we wouldn't bring you contemporary reaction, but Transit did provoke a lot of responses to the DWM Timelines letters page, and they appeared in issue 197, and this was under the heading of Virgin Territory. The first letter is from Nick Walters of Bristol, who would of course later write for the BBC Books range. He said, "I am a firm fan of the New Adventures, believing them to be, on the whole, worthy continuations and even improvements in some cases on the TV series. Transit, therefore, came as a major disappointment, a cheapening and lessening of all that makes Doctor Who unique. Clearly, Ben Aaronovitch was trying to force Doctor Who into his own world, but, like a square peg into a round hole, this will not work. Doctor Who is resolutely and reassuringly square and unhip. It will never ever embrace the kind of worldview that the author envisages. This is best illustrated by the misuse of sex and swearing in the novel. I'm no prudish, censorious hypocrite. Everyone swears and has sex, even Doctor Who fans. But there is no place in the world of Doctor Who for gratuitous sex or overtly strong language. The sentence on page 44 concerning semen taste in a character's mouth is virulently repugnant. Doctor Who is a fantastic, idealistic world which can only operate within certain parameters that should never be breached. One of those parameters is that the Doctor should never be seen to be evil or selfish. He is a force for good. By and large, this has been adhered to, save for a few lapses during the Sixth Doctor's era. Another of the fairly obvious parameters is the case in point. No swearing or gratuitous sex. It is a fairy tale world where no one goes to the toilet. The public and fans in general know and accept this. It is part of the reason why the programme is a national institution and part of popular culture. It is simply a safe conventional narrative for the playing out of battles between good, the Doctor, and evil, the monsters. This framework has proved marvellously flexible for 30 years. Writers like Ben Aaronovitch, however worthy their motives, only prove that when you step outside this framework, the magic is ruined. There are many more criticisms to be levelled at Transit. It is a sitting duck, a goat for Who fans. Perhaps that was Aaronovitch's intention. Perhaps he thought, "Ah, here's a chance to annoy all those whinging, immature, reactive, overprotective fans out there. I'll write a book which is the total antithesis of all Doctor Who stands for." Perhaps it was. I can see no other motive behind the novel. And whilst I do not mind, indeed rather enjoy, goading fellow fans into fits of frothing apoplexy, I do not enjoy reading books that are puerile and pointless, stylised to the point of suffocation and completely ignorant of the subject matter. Let's hope that 1993's New Adventures are more to do with Doctor Who than their authors. There's another letter here from Graham Cox of Silkmore in Staffordshire. Since they started in 1991, I have been growing increasingly concerned about the level of swearing in the New Adventures novels, but I never thought I'd see the day when they would start using four-lettered words. By allowing Aaronovitch to use the F word in transit, Virgin editor Peter Darvill Evans has proved that he is too irresponsible to be in charge of a series of novels that, although geared towards the older reader, will be read by children. And Ben Aaronovitch has dirtied the name of Doctor Who by bringing it down to the level of rubbish seen elsewhere on TV and in print. He should be ashamed of himself. Ian Scales of Sittingbourne in Kent also wrote in, I'm relieved to see that it isn't just me who is concerned about the continuing trends in the New Adventures series of novels. Both Tiki Hare's letter in DWM 194, Gary Russell's review of Transit DWM 195 mention areas of the books which trouble me. If the insertion of swear words, violence and sex is some attempt to make the stories more adult, then I suggest the words childish and puerile springs more readily to mind. Also, the recurring ludicrous New Age themes of patterns and priests losing their faith almost makes one wonder if Virgin have recruited all these writers from some occult New Age group. Why do all these books contain such similar philosophies? Off the Shelf, DWM 195, states that some people may see Transit as the last straw. To be frank, I think we're seeing the end of the real Doctor, who we once loved to see, hear and read about. Also joining in was Matthew Link of Maidstone in Kent. I must congratulate Andrew Hunt for Witchmark and Mark Gatiss for Nightshade. Love and War was an excellent improvement on Paul Cornell's first New Adventures novel. So, just as I was thinking that perhaps there was hope for the New Adventures after all, along comes Transit. Can this really be the same Ben Aaronovitch who wrote The Unbeatable Remembrance of the Daleks novelisation? Transit comes close to equalling Warhead as the worst Who book ever. 5 good books out of 10 is not a good track record for one of only 2 sources of news stories. The other source, however, the DWM comic strip, goes from strength to strength. At the time of writing, Pure Blood is almost finished and looks set to be as good as The Grief, The Good Soldier and The Mark of Mandragora. Only Ravens wasn't as good, but that was based around Warhead, so it couldn't be helped. There is, however, a defender for the New Adventures, and it's come from Steve Hopper of Plymouth in Devon. Steve says, Can I be the only one thoroughly sick of the criticism steeped upon the New Adventures? Not intelligent comment on narrative structure, dialogue, pacing or characterisation. Indeed, much of that said about the severe ace bias in the books has been intriguing, but the sad bleating and whining by those shocked at references to sexuality, violence and other dangerous non-Who themes. First, there was the outcry over the justified sequences in Genesis, accusations of paedophilia, without first stopping to consider whether or not it was an accurate depiction of the society concerned. This initial style of critique seems to have set the tone for all comment upon the series' content ever since. The reason for all this is clear. For years the television series failed to achieve the status of adult, a conscious decision by the BBC, who realised they would lose the majority of their audience if the storylines became too complex or got sidetracked into concerns that an intelligent 14-year-old of the 60s and 70s would have no interest in. Hence, the monsters invaded endlessly, and there was little room for character development and relationships. Finally, John Nathan Turner summed it all up with, "There's no hanky-panky in the TARDIS." Not sex, you notice, but hanky-panky, a smutty, repressed term that conjures up images of Benny Hill, slap and tickle, nudging and winking, seaside postcards, etc. This attitude to sex, that is dirty and not something nice people are interested in, unfortunately seems to have rubbed off on some Doctor Who fans. Doctor Who on television was safe family entertainment, solid English actors with middle-class accents being terribly nice to one another, even when threatening the universe. It reinforced the stereotypes of the time. Girl assistants screamed, fell over tiny rocks and were completely useless. Black men were mainly strong, silent slaves, like Toberman in the Tomb of the Cybermen, of Sills Bearers and Mind Warp. Aliens were, on the whole, hostile. It was a sexist, racist, xenophobic children's series that we all fell in love with, and haven't stopped loving since. That does not mean that we shouldn't accept its limitations and see its faults. The New Adventures have tried to move on from all those. By provoking thought and widening their scope, they have frightened some fans into the kind of reactions displayed in timelines. They have dared to depict sexuality not as a giggly playground hanky-panky, but as an important part of characters' lives. Important as much to the crew of the TARDIS as to the cultures they become involved with. Violence has also been used, sometimes to a terrifying degree. Again, this has brought howls of protests and displays of an attitude that seemed to prefer sweeping difficult topics under the carpet and ignoring them rather than trying to understand them via confrontation. The writers of the New Adventures should not have their creativity squeezed by their constraints of perceived good taste. To do so is to surrender to the likes of the despicable Mary Whitehouse and her followers. Recently, the DWM comic strip has been criticised for its occultism and pagan symbolism. This really takes the biscuit. There are other religions than Christianity. Some are much older and much purer. I am not interested in reading comics and novels that are safe, unchallenging, and swamped with stereotypes that have become cosy with age. The New Adventures have given Doctor Who a new lease of life and a chance to fulfil the promise the series had as a concept away from the small screen, sensibly, that boxed it in so tightly for so long. When reading the fan criticisms, I am sadly reminded of author Ramsey Campbell's words concerning Mary Whitehouse. Small minds clamping shut. There we go. Significant numbers of reactions there, and you dread to think what didn't make it into print, given that that's what they did show. So yes, plenty of comments there and reactions, so it shows that people at the time were not best pleased by what they were getting to see. Now, of course, we can put things into context and have a look and see where the book sits today. On Goodreads, it has a rating of 3.23 from 529 ratings and 71 reviews. There's quite a mixed bag there. There are some good reviews. There's a 5-star review from Hector Keating who says, "I went into this book having heard it to be the worst new adventure, but I see very little wrong with this book. Surely the too broad and too deep for TV was taken a bit literally, page 224, but I wasn't totally offended by those parts, as they only made up a few pages in total. Overall, I found this to be a good read with decent pacing. I understand that many will and do hate this book, as they may think it doesn't feel like a traditional Doctor Who story, but I believe Aaronovitch has personified the Doctor well and has created some interesting characters, but not all of them were as interesting. He also understands the show, which he regularly references, page 204, and has many funny moments throughout the book, usually as closing lines for segments. I would recommend this book, but only to those who have read at least the previous two, Nightshade and Love and War." It's a 4-star review from Thomas, who says, "More than any of the early New Adventures, this feels like Sylvester McCoy era Doctor Who done as a novel aimed at adults. The short scenes which start late and end boldly, the tendency to jump all over the place, a story structure based more on the accumulation of multiple plot lines as opposed to one strand of cause and effect, and a general disinterest in explaining itself. It's the McCoy era ported over to a book. The use of these structures allows Aaronovitch to very effectively build out a staggeringly lived-in world populated by a wide range of distinct people. The first half of the book is defined by a gritty materialism that makes for the most fleshed-out world that Doctor Who has ever managed. No other setting has felt quite so real. Brilliant moments shine through, and it comes to a head with a delightfully surreal confrontation in a universe being filtered through the Doctor's perception to appear like a computer interface. The book is awash with great ideas, and the ending surprisingly brings them together well. No matter how much you almost get lost during it, come the end of the book, everything gets resolved into a most satisfying narrative. Good characters, great moments, innovative ideas, and the single best world-building Doctor Who has ever managed up to that point. It's sometimes a bit wobbly, but for the most part, this is exactly what a Doctor Who done as an adult novel should be. It might not be the best of the early New Adventures, but it's the one that feels most like what these books should be." So there we go. Positive reactions. And people are still enjoying it today. As an addendum, in issue 265 of Doctor Who magazine, they ran a poll with readers asked to rate the new adventures, in which Human Nature came number 1, Just War number 2, The Dying Days number 3, Nightshade 4, Lung Barrel 5, Time Worm Exodus 6, Blood Harvest was 7th, 8th was All Consuming Fire, 9th was Blood Heat, and 10th was The Also People, also by Ben Aaronovitch of course. But languishing in number 61, the very bottom new adventure was Transit, which only got 45.57% of the vote. The feature was written by Dave Owen, who tried to sum up the book's unpopularity.
Much of Transit's unpopularity can be attributed to its positioning in the range. Readers hoping for more of Ben Aaronovitch's televised bangs and preaching searched in vain for recognisable Doctor Who herein. Instead, they found an SF story told in an SF style, replete with dystopian future slang, a barely present Doctor, and a wholly absent Ace. Instead, there's a new companion, Bernice, whose principal actions are to be brainwashed and then disappear. There's a sort of hyperspace London Underground to Pluto, I think, and the Brigadier's descendant, sort of, perhaps, and lots of clues to be followed up in later Aaronovitch and Kate Orman books, probably. Let's be honest, I have no real idea what Transit is about, and suspect that few of you do either.
And for those of you wondering, yes, that was the real Dave Owen speaking his words from back in 1997. So there we go, another novel covered. Not often you get a number 1 best-selling author on, so I'm delighted. And again, massive thanks to Ben. And of course thanks to Craig for doing the readings. And Dave Owen as well for chipping in there at the end. Remember, if you enjoy the Power of 3 and what we do, you could leave a review for us on your favourite podcatcher, whether it's iTunes or any other one. You might use Podbean, that's what I tend to use for mine. But please do leave us a review because it will help us get more listeners and help us keep going and so on. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter, we're at Power of 3 Pod. We are on Blue Sky at Finished Scene, and we have a Facebook page too. And you might just get to see some cover art from this book on there as well. So, we're out of time, but not out of luck. Unlike that song. We're not playing that one. Instead, we're going to play a track that seems very appropriate. So, given that Transit was the first Doctor Who novel to use the word, swearing alert, fuck, we're going to go with a Lily Allen song. And this track is called Fuck You. Bye bye.
Look inside your tiny mind, then look a bit harder. 'Cause we're so uninspired, so sick and tired of all the hatred you harbour. So you say it's not okay to be gay, well I think you're just evil. You're just some racist who can't tie my laces. Your point of view is medieval.